You are listening to Business Heroine Radio for the entrepreneur who says she will and does. Join the Business Heroine community today at businessheroinemagazine.com. And now, tune into the show.
Hello and welcome. I'm Ann Perry, founder of Business Heroine, and you are just going to love our gorgeous March cover girl, Taryn Brumfitt. Taryn is really a special woman. She's the founder and infectious voice behind the body image movement, which is a global movement shifting the way that women think about themselves and in turn feel about their bodies. She's a writer, speaker, and internationally recognized positive body image activist. She's rubbed shoulders with the likes of Beyonce and Kate Moss in Brumfitt magazine's acclaimed Women of the Year awards, and her powerful message has reached over 100 million people worldwide via social media. Taryn is also a keynote speaker and presenter. She's passionate about creating a generation of empowered women through delivering her seminar called Developing Daughters and Supporting Sons, and through her online program called Unstoppable. Taryn's been interviewed by Good Morning America, NBC Today, The Huffington Post, and featured on the cover of Women's Health and Fitness. And Tara's latest project, Embrace, which is a documentary, has been supported by the likes of Rosie O'Donnell, Zoe Deschanel, Ashton Kutcher, and Ricky Lake, after 15 million viewers were moved by its compelling trailer. On a personal note, Taryn is a free spirit lover of life, and most of all of her husband and 3 children. She enjoys dancing like no one's watching, even when people are, sipping on green smoothies, kicking butt at karate, and reading books in a hammock from her hometown of Adelaide, Australia. Oh, and famously wearing a pair of pink and orange sunglasses. So cute. I just adore her on so many levels. Taryn, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. And, you know, I met Taryn about a year ago, and she's just super down to earth and fun. And as, you know, it's almost you wouldn't know that she has, you're fancy. I don't know how else to say it. You're super fancy, Taryn, with what you're up to and just like the reach that you have. But what I love about it is this is just all truly coming from, I don't know, your heart and your mission to completely change the way that we approach ourselves and our bodies. And your story is so compelling. Let's start there. Will you share with us your journey? Like, how did the body image movement happen?
Yeah, sure. So it's been the most organic and not planned part of my life, I guess. I was a photographer. I was a mum of 3. And after the birth of my first child, the relationship that I had with my body changed. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't like what happened to my boobs and what happened to my tummy, and I had a second and a third child, and it just got worse and worse. And after I had my third, which was Michaela, I decided I was going to have surgery. And I went to the surgeon and I said, fix my body, it's broken. And a few weeks after the initial surgeon appointment, I was sitting there watching Michaela, and I was thinking, how am I going to go ahead with surgery, and what message would that send Michaela? Would it set her up for a life of body loathing and wanting to change parts of her body? Mm-hmm. And of course, I think she's perfect just the way she is. Mm-hmm. So I decided against having surgery. But then, of course, I was left in this body that I didn't like. In fact, I loathed this body. Mm. And I was at the gym one day, and I said to my trainer, okay, so I've decided I'm not going to have surgery, but now I'm stuck in this body, which I hate. I wonder what it feels like to have that perfect body. I wonder what it feels like to have the perfect bikini body. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, why don't you train and enter a bodybuilding competition? I was like, are you crazy? I'm not doing that. And before I knew it, I was at the gym and I was training, and in 15 weeks I lost 15 kilos and my body completely changed. I got into a bikini, and I guess I achieved the bikini body that I had so desperately wanted for so long. And it was in that moment, standing on stage and prancing around in this bikini, in these high heels. And I was standing there thinking, oh my goodness, all of this work and all this obsession about having this body, it's actually just not worth it. And it was when I discovered that this body of mine, it's not an ornament, it's a vehicle in my life, and I'm no longer going to obsess about how it looks, but focus on how it feels. And it changed my life. And I guess having learnt that lesson, and learning to love and respect my body for all the things it can do and how it can feel, I felt like I had won the golden ticket. And I just simply wanted to share that with as many people as I could. So I posted my non-traditional before and after photograph on social media, which was me before, on having the perfect bikini body after having 3 children and trained, and the after was me after I'd put a little bit of weight back on, sitting there naked, tastefully naked, and it went super viral, and it broke people's brains to think a woman could love her body in that after photo.
I love that, the reverse after photo. And I mean, what you're talking about is just, it's on so many levels, whether it's our body, whether it's money, whether it's like the perfect business, the perfect partner. There's like some sort of illusion that we have that this external thing is going to give us the internal feeling of happiness or joy or finally enoughness or whatever it is. And your story is so fascinating because it's like you decided not to have the surgery. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to love what I have or create it to be what I want. And then when you got that external result, it's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? Like you get there and then you're like, where is it? It's this mirage that we keep chasing. So it's so powerful. And like, how did that happen for you? Like the real internal shift of like, I'm just going to love my body as is. Like, did you feel like you had to convince yourself, or how did you actually fall in love with your body?
I think it was just through the process. I guess it started from appreciating what it could do and the strength that it had. And I guess I felt really quite fit. But I guess what I learnt was that health is not just physical. Health is emotional and spiritual too. And whilst I achieved that body and I felt physically quite fit, emotionally and spiritually, I just wasn't a rounded, balanced person. And I guess what happened was I discovered that it wasn't just about one element, and my body, my weight, the way things jiggled, or my cellulite, or whatever it was, it just didn't define the person that I was. And I think it didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't like I woke up one day and just went, I love my body. But it was a process, and it was also, I guess there was a switch in my head that went, I can think differently about this. Nothing that happens physically determines how I feel mentally about myself. And I guess it's like growing a muscle. You just start slowly and be kinder to yourself, and then all of a sudden one day you're taking your clothes off and having a photo. I mean, there are things that I have done that had you have asked me 10 years ago, I would say never in a million years. But I just feel so great, and the best thing about it is that everyone has access to feel like this.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like, like building a muscle, like you said, or the moment by moment decisions about how we treat ourselves and how we talk to ourselves. And, the most amazing thing about this, your personal story has really catalyzed a whole movement. I mean, there is a massive movement behind what you're doing. And I'm curious some of the things that you've heard from people. It's almost like you're a walking permission slip. You're a hall pass for loving ourselves as is and what that opens up. But I'm curious, are there some stories in particular, some examples of people who have told you what you loving your body has done for them or opened up for them?
Oh, there has been some really, really nice, beautiful, moving, emotional stories. I actually received over 7,000 emails. If you can think about that figure for a second.
Yeah.
When everything went viral with the before and after photograph, 7,000 emails hit my inbox, and it was mostly from women, and there were some men, but mostly women sharing their stories of disdain and heartbreak about their relationship with their body. And I guess seeing some diversity and hearing some really truthful stories gives permission to other people to go, oh, maybe I can feel okay as well. I guess it's a bit of maybe it's a bit of hope to think, oh, this is a possibility. And there were stories, and I stayed up so late for so many months trying to read through them all, and I did try to respond to them all as well, of people who, you know, one story that there was a woman who was sexually abused as a child, and she said to me in this email, I was abused and I've eaten my way through life to survive. And now I'm fat, and I know that I'm fat, but I am doing the best that I can do. And I've never shared this story with anyone. I mean, that it's really heavy to hear that. But gosh, it really inspires me to think that through communicating and talking about how we feel and being truthful, we can really help one another, because I believe that this is a global epidemic of body shaming. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've traveled all around the world, and in every country I've been to, women really hate their bodies. And it's such a great crime for so many brilliant minds and half of the world's population to be at war with something that they shouldn't be at war with. And trying to defy the natural evolution even. You know, this whole anti-aging thing drives me a bit bonkers. Why are you trying to defy something that it's a privilege denied to many to grow old? It's as much as it's a global epidemic, and I feel like, whoa, this problem is huge. The rumblings that I have felt from women that we want change, and I really hope the documentary that I've just poured 22 months of my life and heart and soul and everything into might just be that springboard where we can open up the conversation to live differently to what we are and stop being.
Wow, I'm just smiling over here. It's so powerful what you're talking about. And, you know, it's like such an epidemic, like you said, and almost like it's not invisible, but it is in a way. It's like we're aware of it, but I'm curious, you know, what level as we start to wake up, you know, finding the depth at which that, you know, the depth at the cost that really has on humanity, on women, and therefore humanity, all of humanity. And so, I mean, I would love to just play possibility for a second. Like, I love to, you know, I love talking with people with really powerful missions. And because there's something that's like, you know, here's what's wrong. And then on the other side of that is here's what's possible. Like, if the world just woke up to this, if women all just started truly loving their bodies now, how would that change the world? And I know there's countless ways, but give us sort of a glimmer into the world that you see as possible.
Oh gosh, this is the stuff that I go to bed and just think about most nights. You know, like it's a really funny thing. Before I go to bed each night, I try and think of all the things that I would just love to see in the world, and this is actually one of them. So I know just for myself as an individual, the way that I've changed the relationship that I've had with my body, the impact that it's had on my 3 children, and my family unit, and even my friends. So I watch my daughter and the relationship she has with her body, and the way she talks about her body, and the way she does things, and she's not anchored down by these thoughts that so many are anchored down by. And there's a real freedom and liberation in that. And I was having this conversation with her the other night, and I was saying, you know, we are the lucky ones. You know, we have everything we could possibly need. So, and she's 6, so it's a big conversation to have with a 6-year-old. But I was saying to her, in this lifetime, it's up to you and it's up to me to contribute and to help and to support other people who can't help themselves. And I know with her mind not being anchored down by thoughts about I hate this and I hate that about herself. She's able to give more to others, and I see it already. So there's an impact that I've seen with my own family, that loving my body and loving who I am and having this respect is done in a positive way. On a global scale, well, I mean, we know the tragedies, and all empaths know this, you know. There is so much going on in the world that we need our brilliant minds to contribute and to help, but when we're just not there because we're so worried about ourselves. So do I think that loving ourselves and loving our bodies could help world hunger and human trafficking and the sexualization of young girls and violence against women and all of those things? I really do. Absolutely, I do. I'm sorry that I'm not articulating my words. It's one of those subjects that it's because it's an emotional thing for me, and it's actually the driving force behind what I do. Is I just think it's a great tragedy that there are women who don't have food or water, or are victims of abuse. And there are women who also have cellulite and have a bit of stretch marks and may have a few extra kilos, and they're spending their lives obsessed about that. And I kind of look at that sort of dichotomy and think, oh, come on, we need to get on with it. So
no, you articulated it beautifully, like really. And you know, it's so funny because when I think back to, I was thinking about this the other day, when I was a little kid, I thought that grown-up women bodies were so beautiful. And when I look at the exact thoughts I had and the very specific things that I thought were so beautiful, they're things that our society tells us are not beautiful now. Like, for example, you know, I'd be going around, if I was in the locker room or whatever at the swimming pool and there was naked women walking around, I was like, ooh, I wonder if I'll get a belly like that kind of pushes out. Like, that was my thought. Like, I like how that belly pushes out. That's neat. Or I liked, you know, I remember watching my mom in the bathtub, and first of all, I wanted to be as long as the bathtub. I thought that would be amazing to be that long. And then also I looked at her feet and it was like, oh, when I grow up, will I get veins on my feet like that? Like, I wanted these things. I thought veins on feet were awesome. I thought sagging boobs were beautiful. I thought like protruding bellies, like these were things that I thought when I grow up, I hope I get that. And it sounds funny because we're just taught like that's what we're not supposed to want, you know? But it's beautiful. Why is that not beautiful?
Exactly. And, you know, isn't it funny? I often say when I'm speaking that if you lined up a very long row of 6-month-old babies and look at the diversity of all of those babies at 6 months old, what happens when we grow up that we have to conform to an ideal of how we should look? You know, we celebrate, you know, oh, look at this little one's thighs here, and you grab them, or these little chubby cheeks or whatever it is. But for some reason that's okay for a baby, but when you're an adult you can only look, you know, a certain way. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's well, I'm just so grateful for the work that you're doing in the world, and you know, just another layer of the positive ripple that happens when we are loving our bodies, and kind of, I feel like it's, oh man, it's like being in touch with our own joy and our own pleasure, and a women being in touch with their joy and pleasure, I feel is magical. And we actually have a writer in Business Heroine magazine, Liana Silver, who talked about, she called it the happy woman quotient. And it's like, when a woman in the village, when the woman of the village is happy, it ripples out and everybody's happy. And it's not necessarily so with men, and not to say that it's not important for men to be happy, but it doesn't have that sort of rippling out of happiness. So it's, I don't know, it's just, we're at an interesting time in the evolution of humanity, I guess. I'm just sort of pondering and musing over here.
I totally agree. And I think I was actually having this conversation with a friend the other day about women and women in competition with one another. And I think maybe for a little while there we may have lost our way, but we were being marketed and it was rammed down our throats that this competition was real. But it was never real. Mm-hmm. Women are authentically the ones who, when someone's sick, will deliver a meal, or help out. The sisterhood is one of the most beautiful parts of the world, and I think what is happening at the moment is so many of our sisters are not having a positive relationship with their body, therefore they're not able to contribute as much as they can in this life. And I get so excited to think that we can all rally together to create a global movement of positive change, which that ripple effect, and that joy that's expressed when it comes from within, and the love that you have for yourself ripples across to all the other sisters across the world. It's going to be really exciting. And when I said body image movement, when I came up with this, a few years ago, I didn't understand the enormity of it back then. And as I said, this all started organically. So I'm like, well, I'd love to create a movement, but I didn't understand the depth of that comment. But now, having seen and spoken to tens of thousands of women, and the current state of play, and the yearning of where we want to be, and the conversations, I'm in my lifetime, this movement will be created, because we all want this so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. It's just really, really inspiring. I'm so glad for the opportunity to talk with you about this and to introduce you to the business heroines out there. And tell us about the documentary that we have to look forward to.
Yeah, so well, I tell you what happened. A couple of years ago, after the before and after went viral, and I did lots of media interviews all around the world, and it just wasn't enough. And I thought, how do I create and how do I have time to sit with millions of people and convey this message and share not only my story, but many inspiring stories from women around the world? How do I do that? And as a photographer, I that was the first port of call, was maybe I could take some photos. And then I thought, no, we need to see moving imagery. And that's the motivation for making the documentary. And I'm not a documentary filmmaker, but 22 months later, I feel like I am now. I've sort of lived this project, and it's, as I say, it's not just my story. It's stories from inspiring women around the world who have overcome great adversity to learn to love their bodies, and speaking to experts as well, as to why we are here. And yeah, it's been my heart and my soul, and I've done it for people, I've done it for women, I've done it for my daughter, and it's going to hit cinemas in June across the world, and I can't wait to share. It's like a fourth child.
Yeah.
But I believe that in my heart, it's the project that I've done that I'm most proud of, and it's my most authentic thing that I've ever produced, and I really hope it's the starting point to this global movement where we can come together and move past this body image issue that so many of us are having.
Yeah, wow. Well, thank you so much for doing it. I mean, I talk a lot about, the type of the soul-fueled businesses that, the business heroine community, that tends to be what business is about, is making a difference in the world with our unique gifts. And one of those is through our unique challenges. Like, we've gone through personal challenges, and so we have a choice with what to do with that. And what you chose to do with your personal challenge is so beyond inspiring, and it's just, really so much gratitude to you. And I cannot wait to see this documentary when it comes out. How can the business heroines get involved? Is there anything, that we can do between now and then, or once the movie's out? Tell us how we can support the movement.
Yeah, sure. So we have an ambassador program with Body Image Movement, and it's we have around 500 women across the world who are giving up an hour of their time every week. So rather than sitting on social media and reading stories you don't need to read, it's about injecting an hour of positivity back into the world by sharing the messages of the body image movement. And I would just love your community to come and join the ambassador program, and I guess work with like-minded women across the world just to make a little difference every single week. And that's a big one. And of course, when the documentary comes out, I just encourage everyone to go and see it and enjoy it and start the conversation. That's really what is going to create this change, is having a conversation with your girlfriends, having a conversation with your children, having a conversation in your workplace, and saying no and standing up to the things that aren't okay, whether that's in the media, the sexualization of girls, the objectification of women, just having a voice. But the ambassador program and seeing the documentary would be a great start. And I really look forward to connecting with lots of your community members.
Oh, that's perfect. We'll make sure that we have the link to the ambassador program there in the article. So, Taryn, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so honored to have you on the cover of our magazine and to just have crossed paths with you, and to be able to support this message and this movement that you are leading. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Oh, it's my great pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Nude. Thank you for having me nude on your cover.
Yeah, thanks for being nude on our cover. So beautiful. And thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to Business Heroine Radio for the entrepreneur who says she will and does. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out what's new at businessheroinemagazine.com today.